Hi and welcome back. I'm Nathan and you're watching 𝐊𝐴𝐴 TV live from Sydney. Welcome to the Economic Corner, where we update you on all the biggest global economic announcements. The first economic update of the day is Chinese President Xi Jinping address at the Boa Forum for Asia. The Chinese president has called for a new world order. He said, and I quote, "International affairs should be handled by everyone." This is considered as an indirect attack against the US global leadership, though he did not name the US in his 18-minute speech, but took aim at Washington's efforts to decouple supply chains and bar critical American semiconductors and other high-tech goods from being sold to Chinese companies such as Huawei. Just as the day before, the US President Joe Biden and Yoshihide Suga, Japan's Prime Minister, committed to work together to oppose Chinese coercion in the South and East China Seas. Xi further said, and I quote, "Bossing others around and interfering in other countries' internal affairs will not be well received." Other important names that will participate in the Boa Forum include Apple Chief Executive Tim Cook, Goldman Sachs President John Waldron, Tesla Chief Elon Musk, and Stephen Schwarzman of Blackstone. Moving on, there are reports that upgraded free trade agreements between China and New Zealand that will generate fresh momentum for their trade ties in the coming years, boosting the trade in goods and services and regional connectivity activities. Yu Benlin, Director General of the Department of International Economic and Trade Affairs at the Ministry of Commerce, said that under the upgraded agreement, China and New Zealand have committed to reinforcing cooperation in areas including e-commerce, competition rules, government procurement, and their trade in goods. Zhang Jinping, Director General of the Beijing-based China Center for Regional Economic Cooperation, said the move is an indication that both nations hope to achieve a comprehensive, modern, and high-quality agreement. Trade and economic ties between the two sides will expand in terms of scale and become more dynamic in the next stage. China and New Zealand signed their original FTA in April 2008 and implemented it in October that year. They began talks on upgrading the agreement in November 2016 and concluded the talks in November 2019, according to information released by the Ministry of Commerce. The upgraded FTA will make exporting to China easier for New Zealand companies and reduce costs. Data from the General Administration of Customs shows that China-New Zealand trade soared by 33.2% year-on-year to $5.92 billion in the first quarter of 2021. Timber, dairy and leather products, meat, pulp and raw materials for textiles are China's main imports from New Zealand, while clothing, machinery, telecom equipment and parts, computers, furniture, toys and sports goods are China's pillar exports to New Zealand. Apart from enhancing trade ties via various free trade deals, a number of Chinese companies have already invested in New Zealand, including China's dairy giants Meninggu Dairy Group, Yale Industrial Group, and Bright Dairy and Food, as well as infrastructure company Beijing Capital Group and telecom equipment provider Huawei Technologies. Moving on to update coming in from Moody's, which expects New Zealand's economy to remain resilient in the face of external headwinds. It said that New Zealand's credit profile reflects strong policy effectiveness and a robust fiscal position, and that external risks stem from the country's reliance on soft commodities exports and its net international liabilities. Meanwhile, the New Zealand government on April 13 produced a proposal into Parliament that would require financial service providers to report the impact of climate change on their business. It is the first country in the world to introduce such legislation. The law would apply to banks and insurers with total assets of more than $703 million, money managers with more than $1 billion New Zealand dollar of assets under management, and all issuers of listed debt and equity securities. Failure to comply could subject all directors at a company to a fine of up to 500,000 New Zealand dollars and up to 5 years in prison. Separately, the United States and China on April 17th issued a joint statement pledging to cooperate to significantly advance global climate ambition on mitigation, adaptation and support. The two countries intend to keep discussing ways to decarbonise industry, increase use of renewable energy, foster green and low carbon transportation, among other issues. US President Joe Biden is hosting a virtual leaders summit on climate on April the 22nd and 23rd. Leaders of Antigua and Barbuda, Bangladesh, Bhutan, China, the European Union, India, Indonesia, Kenya, Nigeria and the United Kingdom are among the 40 who have been invited. JP Morgan on April 15th said it aims to finance and facilitate more than $2.5 trillion over 10 years to help address climate change and contribute to sustainable development. On the same day, Citigroup said it would commit $1 trillion to similar goals over a similar time frame. Next up is news from the pandemic recovery phase. The UK said that it will add India to its red list of countries as the country battles a new variant and a surge in coronavirus cases that is creating havoc in Indian hospitals and depleting oxygen supplies. Shares of Indian banks have also tumbled as investors fear a wave of defaults owing to the surge in COVID infections and a new round of local lockdowns. Meanwhile, China's Xi Jinping called for closer global cooperation in developing, manufacturing and distributing COVID-19 vaccines to improve accessibility and affordability for developing countries. On the other hand, sales of Johnson & Johnson's COVID vaccine hit $100 million in the first 3 months of the year. The company will restart vaccine shipments to Europe after the European regulator said the jab's benefits still outweigh risks despite blood clot concerns. Now updates on economic data. Australian retail sales surpassed expectations in March as soaring house prices boosted consumer confidence, while the reopening of state borders allowed cashed-up households to splurge on travel again. Preliminary data from the Australian Bureau of Statistics, or the ABS, showed that sales rose 1.4% in March from February, outpacing market forecasts for a 1% gain. The rises were led by Victoria and Western Australia, with both states rebounding from COVID-19 lockdown restrictions during February. The ABS will release the final estimate for February sales on May 10th. New Zealand inflation accelerated slightly in the first quarter, adding to signs the central bank may not need to cut interest rates any further. Consumer prices rose 1.5% from a year earlier, picking up from a 1.4% in the fourth quarter and matching economists' estimates. Prices advanced 0.8% from 3 months earlier. The Reserve Bank projects inflation will temporarily accelerate into the top half of its 1 to 3% target range through 2021, before slowing next year. The latest reading of Germany's manufacturing PMI at 66.6 in March exceeded the previous all-time high in the 25-year history of the series by more than 3 points. Merchandise experts have come close to pre-pandemic levels in February, and manufacturing orders have been recovering with almost no interruption since May 2020 and are now at their highest levels since December 2018. At the same time, service sector PMI managed to edge modestly above 50 in March in reaction to cautious loosening of pandemic-related restrictions. Overall, the number shows a third wave risk to Germany's economic recovery. From the UK, the latest figures suggest that the jobs market has been broadly stable in recent months. After a few months of increases, there was a small monthly decrease in the number of payrolled employees in March 2021. The largest monthly falls were seen at the start of the coronavirus pandemic. Over the years, the largest falls in payrolled employment have been in the hospitality sector, among those aged under 25 years and among those living in London. Data from the Labour Force Survey, or the LFS, for the 3 months to February 2021 is little changed on the quarter. The number of job vacancies in January to March 2021 fell by nearly 23% on the year. Arts, entertainment and recreation and accommodation and food service activities continue to be the worst affected. Moving on, the 6-month annualised growth rate in the Westpac Melbourne Institute Leading Index, which indicates the likely pace of economic activity relative to trend 3 to 9 months into the future, lifted from 3% in February to 3.29% in March. The growth rate of the leading index continues to point to above-trend growth in 2021. Westpac is forecasting growth of 4.5% in 2021, largely driven by the consumer, who is expected to contribute 3 of those percentage points. The reopening of the economy, cashed-up households, and an 11-year high in consumer sentiment all point to strong spending. The housing market is booming. Westpac expects dwelling price growth of 15% in 2021, along with surging dwelling construction. The Treasurer announces the federal budget on May 11, and the budget is unlikely to focus on fiscal repair. Despite recent encouraging progress, the unemployment rate is too high and well above the full employment level, which is likely to be below 4%. Now for the important economic events for the day. Russian President Vladimir Putin will deliver his annual State of the Nation address today amid growing tensions with the Ukraine and a hunger strike by Alexei Navalny, who was moved to a prison hospital this week. NextEra Energy, Verizon, Baker Hughes, Chipotle and Mexican Grill are among the companies reporting results today. The UK's March inflation reading will be released today and could mark a point when price growth switches to an upward trajectory. Year on year, consumer price growth ticked down to 0.4% in February from 0.7% the month before. UK Finance Minister Rishi Sunak will speak to a conference organised by the Institute of International Finance. BOE Deputy Governor David Ramsden will deliver keynote speech at FinTech event and Bank of Canada's key policy interest rate announcement, and monetary policy report will also come out today. Well, that's all for now. Keep watching 𝐊𝐚𝐥𝐤𝐢𝐧𝐞 TV as we bring you the latest news and trending market updates live from Sydney. Thanks for watching.